World War I, the war between the Central Powers, Austria-Hungary, Germany, Bulgaria, and Turkey, and the Allies, US, Britain, France, Russia, and Italy, was initiated by the assassination of the Austria-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The war was negatively received by a large population of Americans who wanted nothing to do with it and desperately tried to avoid drafting.
Edward Bernays believes society was irrational, and as a result threatening, because of the indication for more people to think and behave like the majority, what Wilfred Trotter, a noticeable social psychologist, referred to as herd instinct. The majority of Americans believed America should have no place in the war and remain neutral, but others, like Woodrow Wilson and Edward Bernays, saw the benefit of entering the war. He was known to say, "Men, people, are rarely aware of the real reasons which motive their actions."
The war was one leading factor for Edward Bernays' use of propaganda. Bernays was one of the first fathers of public relation to use the subconscious in hopes to manipulate public opinion. When the war ended, Bernays became the director of the Committee of Public Information, or CPI, and used the techniques he learned to become an outspoken proponent of propaganda for the democratic government.
Bernays' mission was to change America from an indecisive country to an anti-Germany fighting country using media's heavily relayed messages of patriotism and support for America with quotes like,
"It's up to you to protect your nation's honor." So, why did Edward Bernays feel it was his duty as father of public relations to manipulate society and impose his ideas during World War I? And what were his other lasting legacies?
Edward L. Bernays felt it was his duty to manipulate public opinion by adapting theories by Sigmund Freud and others in order to sway the American public towards being in favor and joining World War I. He believed it was the only way to bring structure and function into the country.
Bernays once wrote, "It was, of course, the outstanding success of propaganda during the war that opened the eyes of the intelligent few in all departments of life to the possibilities of regimenting the public mind."
In 1917, Woodrow Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war, stating it was ample opportunity to shape peace, his bias most likely on the promising hope of American social gain. Wilson and Bernays saw U.S. involvement in the war and was an economically strategic move, initiated the spread of propaganda in order to connect ideas of war and drafts to patriotism.
Although U.S. had virtually no effect on the war because they interfered, siding with Britain and the Allies towards the end of the war in 1915, the Allies' win of the war powered America's economy. Seeing as America was essentially the only country that remained untouched by the repercussions of the war, the U.S. became the top import and export country, trading a plethora of supplies needed in other countries, mainly to Europe, in order to survive their post-war state.
After the war, Bernays directed the Committee of Public Information (CPI), created by Wilson to enhance propaganda popularization efforts in Latin America. Bernays once said, "Modern businesses must have its finger continuously on the public pulse. It must understand the changes in the public mind and be prepared to interpret itself fairly and eloquently to changing opinion."
Bernays set out a campaign that ended up increasing women's use of tobacco and making bacon, a byproduct of Quaker, the most common breakfast food. He believed the manipulation of people's minds was a fun game needed in order to guide them out of irrational behavior because society was motivated by these four common traits: self-preservation, security, aggression, and sex. He shared many of the same theories as Freud, his uncle, who also believed people needed to be governed by elite higher figures to maintain the order of society and prevent chaos from ensuing. Freud and Bernays secretly worked together on overseas projects.
Once the intentions of propaganda were being called into question, a debate between skeptic Everett Dean Martin and Edward Bernays sparked. Martin admitted there to be a variety of good propaganda, but said there were ulterior motives at times. He stated, "Propagandist is not the same as public instruction. It is never disinterested information.
Propaganda is more commonly associated with manipulation because of how the Nazis used it to gain support for war conquests and increase their public appeal. Modern propaganda ranges from the press, TVs, radios, and computers. Propaganda is effective because people are easily susceptible to it. It uses reinforcements of social myths and stereotypes, making it difficult to recognize. All in all, propaganda resulted in the increase of draft members for World War I, which led to huge economical growth for the US.